we are working for view 6, the snow-capped mountains in the distance. Now for this, at certain points you are excuse me, using the Intarsia method, which is where you use individual blocks of colour or individual blocks of yarn. So make sure that before you get started you have cut the necessary lengths in the necessary colours. Now for this as well, we're starting with, I'm starting with the cream yarn, so it's whatever is yarn A for you. That might be black, depending on which one you're making. So I have already done a chain of 53. I don't think you need to watch me do that chain. Then the first row is just lovely and simple. You work a UK treble into the 4th chain from the hook. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's this one for me. And the 4 chain that you leave in at the beginning there do count as the first treble of the row. You are then going to work 1 treble into each of the chains right to the end, and when you have finished you'll have 51 stitches, and one of those, as I've just said, is this here. So I will carry on working my trebles to the end of this row, and then I'll join you at the end. We do change yarn colour, so be ready for that when you get to the end of the row, but I'll come back in a moment and just show you what I've got, just so that you're happy with what you're doing as well. Okay, we'll see you in a moment. Right, so that is row 1. I've now checked, I've got my 51 stitches, and at the end I've joined with yarn G, which for me is the lovely lime colour. I've also cut off the threads for the cream because we won't be picking that back up again till later on now in this particular square, so I don't need that hanging around. So we'll be back in a moment with how to work row 2, and we'll see you in a minute. Okay, so row 2 starts with a chain of 3, and because I've changed colour I like to do my first one with the new yarn, and then another 2 chains there. Now this is going to count as the first treble here and throughout, so I don't work into that stitch there. I'm now going to work a treble into every stitch all the way back to the end, and not forgetting that when you get to the last set of chain 3, which is at the other end of this cream row, that you need to make sure you work a treble into that so that you don't end up losing a stitch. So I'm just going to quietly work my way across the row till we get to the end, finish with your 51 stitches and turn ready to work the next row. So we'll be back in a moment showing you the completed row. Okay. Okay, so nice and simple, 2 rows of trebles there. Row 3 is going to be exactly the same. So we do a chain of 3 and then just work, ignore the first one because remember that's going to be the chain of 3 counts as the first stitch, and then you work trebles all the way along to the end. So we'll see you at the end of this to work row 4. Okay. Okay, so here we are with row 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 chains, and that counts as the first double treble. We're then going to work a treble into each of the next 2 stitches. So that's 1, 2. Then a half treble into each of the next 2 stitches. So pull all the way through. So start your treble to that point, pull all the way through. Then a double crochet. Remember these are all the UK versions. then a half treble into each of the next 2 stitches, and a treble into each of the next 2 stitches, and then we need a double treble, so that's 2 wraps before you go into the hole, and then round and through 2, round and through 2, round and through 2, and then we start the sequence again of a treble into each of the next 2 stitches, a half treble into each of the next 2 stitches, and a double crochet, and then 2 more half trebles, 2 trebles, and 1 double treble. Oops, start that one again. 1, 2, round and through 2, round and through 2, round and through 2. So you keep working that combination and you'll get this nice undulating effect started. So I'm going to carry on to the end of the row, and then I'll come back and show you what we've created, and we'll start again then with row 5. Okay, see you in a moment. Okay, so here we are at the end of row 4. You can see we've got a nice little set of peaks and troughs going on. We've ended with a double treble at the far end, so as long as you end with that, you've in effect started with 1 because of the chain of 4, and you've finished with a double treble, and that way you know you've got the right number of stitches and the right number of waves going on. So we will see you in a moment with row 5. Okay, row 5. So we start with a chain of 3, then we do 1 treble into the base, so this time I'm working right into that first stitch there. Then we're going to do 1 treble into each of the next 3 stitches, so that's 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to work a treble 3 together over the next 3 stitches. So start your treble as normal, working into the next stitch, round and through 2. Then we start another treble, so we wrap, go into the hole, bring it back through, wrap and through 2. So each time we're ending up with an extra loop on the stitch, and then wrap and into the next hole, bring that back through, round and through 2. Then we end up with 4 stitches on the hook, and you do a wrap and you bring through all 4. So you've taken 3 stitches but only ended up with 1. So that's a treble 3 together. Then 1 treble into each of the next 3 stitches. And then 3 trebles into the next stitch, which is on top of the double treble that we worked before. So I'm going to work 3 individual trebles, but each one is worked into the same hole. So where we had decreased here at the bottom, we've now increased at the top, and it just helps to keep things even. Well, it does keep things even. So then we start again. We're going to do 1 treble into each of the next 3 stitches. 2, 3. Then a treble 3 together, so that's wrap into your first stitch, grab your yarn, bring it back through, wrap and through 2, so you've worked sort of half of a full treble. Then we start the next treble, so wrap into the hole, grab that, bring it back through, wrap and through 2, and then we start the next treble, and wrap and through 2, then wrap through all 4 stitches, then we do 3 individual trebles, and then we do 3 trebles into the next stitch, so that's all 3 worked into the same hole. And then you just keep going till you're nearly at the end, and as we come to the end I'll show you just how to finish off. So keep going until you've worked the final of the treble 3 together, and then 3 individual trebles, and then we'll come back at the end. So back in a moment with you. So I'm picking up at the end of this row where I've worked a treble 3 together in the dip there. Then I'm going to work my 3 individual trebles, and then into the final stitch, or this chain of 3, you're going to work 2 trebles, and that's to make sure that your stitch count stays correct. So that's what you have created so far. Now row 6 is exactly the same. So you start with a chain of 3, 1 treble into the base of the chain 3, and then we start the sequence again, which is 1 treble into each of the next 3 stitches, then treble 3 together, so that's most of a treble worked. Pause at that point, then start your next treble and pause again when you've got 3, and then start your next treble and pause when you've got 4, then pull through all 4 stitches at once, and then a treble into each of your next 3 stitches, and then 3 trebles into 1 stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3. So you can see your sequence building up again, so continue with that ripple effect and we'll pick up again at the end of row 6. Okay. Okay, so this is how we should look at the end of row 6. So you've got the nice rippling effect started there, and we're continuing in the same colour for now, but row 7 gets a little bit more, not complicated, but just slightly different. So we'll work on row 7 in just a moment. Okay, so row 7, slightly more complicated. Chain of 3 to start with, and then a treble into the base stitch. Okay, then 1 treble into each of the next 3 stitches. 2, then a slight change here because we're going to do double crochet 3 together. So for that you go straight into the hole, grab the yarn, bring it back through, then you do the same again into the next hole, bring the yarn back through, and then you do it again into the next hole, bring the yarn back through. So you can see there that you've got 4 loops on your hook and you've basically picked up all 3 of those stitches. Then you wrap your yarn and bring it through all 4 loops. So that's a very short one, that's giving it a really sort of deep ravine in there. So then we're going to do 3 more trebles, all individuals, 1 into each of the next 3 holes. And then to make this V much more pronounced, we're going to do 3 double trebles. So that's 2 wraps, and these are all going to be worked into the same hole on the row below, or the same stitch. So 2 wraps into that hole, grab, bring it back through, round and through 2, round and through 2, round and through 2, and then a third one. So that's 3 of those, and then we're going to start the repeat again. So we've got 3 trebles, 1, 2, 3. So you can see how that is already making a much sharper V to it. So we've got the 3 trebles, then double crochet 3 together, so that's bringing one through each hole. So you're going front to back, grabbing yarn, bringing it back through. You've got all 4 loops then on your hook, round, bring it through all 4, and then 3 trebles, 1, 2, 3, and we're back to the 3 double crochets into the top of the peak of the row below, and you're going to continue that sequence all the way along to the other end. So we'll pick up as we get near to the other end for finishing off the row, but keep going with that repeat all the way across. Okay, we'll see you in a moment. Okay, so we're nearly at the end here. I've just worked the double crochet 3 together, and I'm about to work my 3 individual trebles, and then we're going to work 2 trebles into this final stitch. You can either work them into one of the loops, or you can work them straight into the hole that's there. It's entirely up to you. And as you get to the final stitch, we're bringing in yarn B, which for me is Sage, and this is from the main ball of the Sage. So at the end of row 7, this is what you should end up with. And as I say, finishing and changing to the new yarn. Don't cut off the green just yet. We'll just get onto that in a minute, but it's always safest, I think, until you're quite sure that you don't need it, just keep your yarn attached. So that's where we are. We'll join you again with round 8 in just a moment. Okay, row 8. So we're now on with the lighter green yarn, and we do a 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch, and as you know, I like to do that with the tail from where we're joining. And then we're going to do a double crochet, I got that wrong, double crochet into the back loop only. So we're going into there, so you can see the series of love hearts across the top, and we're working just into the back loop. So I'm doing a UK double crochet there. That's my first stitch, and then we're going to do a half treble into the back loop only of the next 2 stitches, and I'm going to just catch the tail as I go through that. So you wrap, you go into that back loop there, then catching that if you wish. You can always sew that in later if you don't, if you find that a little bit too tricky, don't worry, it can be sewn in. Don't worry about the fact that you're pulling there on the stitches, they all even out beautifully as you go further along. Then a treble into the back loop only of the next stitch. Sometimes catching these tails can be a little bit more faff than it's worth. So then we want a double treble into the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. So that's 2 wraps, 1 into there, bring that through, so round and through 2, round and through 2, round and through 2, and we're going to do that again. because we're starting to level out this row. So back loop only, as you can see. It's a little bit fiddly, but nothing too much. So then a treble in the back loop only of the next stitch, and a half treble into the back loop only of the next 2 stitches. So that one, wrap, bring it back through, round and through all 3, and then a double crochet again into the back loop only. So that's 1, and then we start again. So half treble into the back loop only of the next 2 stitches. Okay, and then 1 treble into the back loop only of the next stitch. So that's round and through 2, round and through 2, and then a double treble into the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. So you can see how the sequence is building up. So continue with this sequence until you get to the end of the row. Sorry. I will pick up again just as we get to the end of the row, just to confirm what you do at the end, but you can see how that is now flattening out the ripples. So carry on with that, and I'll say we'll see you at the end of row 8 and just confirm the ending and show you what we've got. Okay, see you in a moment. Okay, so we're almost at the end. I'm just working the half trebles into the back loop only of the last 2 stitches, and then we're going to work the double crochet into the final stitch. So you can hopefully see there how that's worked really nicely and levelled off that row. And I'm now comfortable that I can cut the green, the lime green off. I don't need that anymore. So that's now been cut. We will join you again for row 9. Okay, see you in a moment. Okay, so row 9, super simple. It's a chain of 3 at the beginning, and then you're working 1 UK treble into each stitch across to the end. So once you get across, do a quick stitch count, make sure that you have got the same number of stitches that you started with, and we will then be ready to start row 10, which is a bit more complex again. So enjoy this row and we'll see you at the other end. Okay, so this is where we are at the end of row 9. The right side is where you have this raised level of green. Before you start row 10, there's the yarns to prepare, the ones that were mentioned earlier in the text. So get your yarns in order, all your different bits of colours in order, because we're now going to start working the mountain peaks, and you need to start using the Intarsia method. So we'll go into that in a bit more detail, but take a few minutes to prepare the next bit, and then we will join you for row 10. Okay, so we're back with row 10. Now with row 10 we start to add the other colours in. So I have lined up here all the little balls of yarn that I'm going to need in the different lengths. So with this you need to make sure that you pick the right one up, which is why I've put them in that order, so that you don't run out of yarn for each point, because this is where the Intarsia comes in. So different parts of the hill and the sky will be worked in different balls of wool. So we start with a chain of 3. You can also work some of this off the chart that you're given, but it varies. Some bits I find easier off the chart and some off the written instructions. So for this one, that counts as the first stitch, and then we are going to work a treble into each of the next 15 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I'm just going to double check now that I've got 16 in total, including this one at the end. So 2, 4, 6, 12, 14, 16. Yeah, so that's my chain of 3 plus 15. Then actually you need, on the last pull through there, to change to the first ball of H. So if I pull that through there, and then we do a treble in that, and then we're changing to new colour. So you're not carrying things across the back on this one, you are changing each time. So do make sure that you don't crochet over that. So we're now doing a treble into each of the next 17 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To imagine to get tangled. Let's just move that right across now out of the way. So what I'm going to do is work across a few of the stitches and then have a quick count. Two, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Then we're moving back to yarn H to do 1 stitch. So we pull through that loop there and work most of the treble, then bringing in another ball of the green. It is worth spending a minute or two actually sorting your balls of yarn out into the right weights, because if you remember you did different lengths, so I would recommend just very carefully laying out the balls of yarn in the order that you need them. These little balls, the 2 smallest ones go at the end of this row, so that's sort of an easier thought. However, do double check that, because there's nothing more annoying than running out of yarn part way through and trying to join some extra in. Now I'm doing 16 stitches, I believe, here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Right, when we get to 16, although you're not actually working a blue stitch on this row, you do need to change to the new colour, because on the next row you are going to start with the blue. So that's what you need to end up with, and all these balls of yarn now attached in various places, because this is where we use the Intarsia method. So you don't carry any of your threads across the back, they're all worked in little individual blocks across. So that's row 10, which does seem quite long-winded, but it's quite easy really. So we'll stop there for a moment and then we'll come back with row 11. Okay, we're on row 11. It's going to be a little bit too easy to start getting tangled here, but just do your best and try and sort your yarn out at the end of each row. So row 11, we start with a chain of 3, and for me that's in the blue yarn. So 1, 2, 3. This is the back of the work, and remember we don't want any threads carrying across the front. So I'm then going to work a treble into the next stitch. Then we do need to swap yarns at the end of that one. So we've got a chain of 3, and then you work most of your treble till you get to those last 2 stitches, and then you need to pull your new yarn through, because the following stitches now are going to be done in the green, making sure you've got the right ball going. So we're working across this. We're going to do 13 stitches, which should take us to just before the blue stitch on the row below. This is where it's kind of nice to have the chart going on as well, because you can see from the chart, oops, did I go there, that you're going to have 3 stitches in blue in the middle here. So nearly there. I think now we should have 13, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I'm on my 13th stitch, making sure all this yarn at the moment is staying towards me. I'm then going to take the working yarn for the blue and pull that through this last little bit. Okay, then we need to work as neatly as we can 3 trebles. That's 1 in a green one, 1 in the top of the blue treble of the row below, and 1 in the top of the first green stitch. Pause there, swap your yarn over and do that final pull through. So you've got 3 stitches in blue, and then we're going to work 15 trebles in green across the middle. And again, when we get to the next blue stitch, we need to stop one stitch before, because we're going to be working 3 stitches with the blue one in the centre of those, the blue one from the row below in the centre. And we'll so you can see there what it is you're achieving. We'll lay it down properly so you can have a proper look as I get to the end of the row. So just untwine that, try and make sure it ends up at the, there we go. Pull this through 2, there. Then we need to work into, oops, bits of green there, trying to get tangled in. You can see it's a little bit fiddly, this. Do take it really slowly. That's 1, 2, and then into the green stitch, not forgetting, as I nearly did there, to then swap to the final green for the final pull through on that one. So you can see that the blue one is already in that stitch there. So we're then working 13 stitches across here. Got a little bit knotted there. That's it. I think I'm on 12 there, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So this is my 13th stitch, and as I get to the final bit, you then need to grab the yarn from the full ball of yarn H and join that back in too. And then move everything you don't need out of the way over this side and complete your final 2 trebles in this blue. So don't forget the chain of 3 is your final stitch. Okay, hope you followed that. So we've got it written, we've got it in picture form, chart form, and then you've got all these extra balls of wool here. So that's what you're aiming for. So they're evenly spaced in. This one's slightly wider, it needs to be. The central one is just fractionally taller than the 2 outer hills. So you've got a 2 and a 2 and 2 sets of 3 in the middle. Okay, I'm going to pause it there so that you can work through that one. Double check your numbers of stitches, and then we'll get into row 12. Okay. Okay, so I've just spent a moment sorting out the yarn so that hopefully I don't get too messed up. We are now on row 12, and it starts with a chain of 3, which is the first stitch, and then we're going to work 2 trebles, 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. So hopefully you can start to see how this is stepping out each time. And then I need to find the next colour from the next ball to pull through the final 2 stitches, or 2 loops, a bit tighter. And then we're going to work trebles. Sorry, I'm a bit off to one side there, aren't I? I think it's 11 this time, if my counting serves me correct, and it will be, we'll be stopping that 1 stitch before the next blue. So the nice thing to remember for the next few rows, obviously keep a track of your rows, is this stepping effect that you're getting. It's a good indication. So that is the last stitch, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. This is stitch 11. Then we find the working thread of the blue yarn and bring that through, and then start to work our five blue trebles. That's 4. So on the 5th one, we pull through those 2, and then pull through the last 2, and then start again. On this central section there will be 13 green stitches. Oops. 4, 5. It can be a little bit tricky when you're doing this and swapping yarns so much to keep your tension consistent. So you might find that you need to put a little bit more sort of pressure on this yarn to keep your tension that little bit tighter. If your tension goes quite loose, you can end up running out of the yarn in the small balls, which is not ideal, and that tends to be the cause if you find that you run out of yarn before you've got to the end of the pieces that you need to work. It'll be because your tension's gone a little bit loose. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. This is number 13. Unhook, and there we go. Pulled that through on the last one, and again work 5 blue stitches. 3, 4, stitch number 5, and pull through that last one, and then we work the final 11 in green, and at the end of the row we should have 3 blue ones left to work. Last 2 green, catch the final one and work the final 1, 2, 3. And I think there you can really see how that's working across. So we're going to keep building like this for a little bit longer. So I will demonstrate parts of rows 13 and 14 and so on, but you may just want to look at the chart now and continue past that, but entirely up to you. I will demo the others for you. Okay, we'll see you in a moment in the next one. Okay, so we're now on row 13 and continuing in the same vein. We're going to do a chain of 3, and then we have got 3 trebles to work. The third one, we move the yarn that we've stopped using out of the way, bring the working yarn back in. So there we go, and so not into that one but into this one, and you've only 9 green stitches to make this time. Oops, where have I gone there? What have I got there for? Remembering this is the back, so any slightly messy strings are okay on this side. Definitely don't want any of those on the other side. So this should be where we change colour. 2, 4, 6, 8, that's number 9. Pull that through. That's lovely. And then working into the green stitch. I nearly missed it then. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that would be number 7. Again, move the yarn out of the way, find the green one and pull that through. So continue working across as you've done before. This time you've got the 7 stitches in blue at the 2 points, and at the end you will be working 4 blue ones. So I'll show you what we've done at the end, but I don't think you need to watch me do the whole row again, as it's the same theory as the rows we've just done before. Okay, so we'll see you at the end of this one. So here we are at the end of row 13. You can see the nice sort of V shapes that are starting to work through there, so that's lovely. So on row 14 we've got another set of these colours, and then we start to do some changes in row 15. So I'll get you started on row 14 and then let you carry on with that one. Okay, see you in a moment. Okay, so here we are with row 14, and again we start with the chain of 3, and then we're going to work 1 stitch into each plus an extra. So 1, oops, 2, 3, and then a 4th one, so that we keep moving along. And then we find the cream, it's not the cream, the green even, and pull that through. And then we continue with the green, working 2 stitches less than on the previous row. So that should be 7. Two, 4, 6, yep, number 7. And then we need to find the blue working yarn for the next section and pull that through. So we'll continue as before to the end of the row, and I think that'll be 9 stitches then in the next section there, so it increases and decreases. You've got the gist of it by now. So we'll carry on to the end of the row, and then I'll show you what we've got at the end of row 14, and then row 15 is where things just change ever so slightly. So back again in a moment with the end of this row. So here we are at the end of row 14. We are now running short on the green, but that's fine because we're now going to change from the green to the snow-capped mountains. So let's pause there and then come back with row 15. Okay, see you in a moment. Okay, so we're back onto the reverse side of the work, and we are, as before, working 3 chain in the first yarn, and then we will be working 5 trebles in this blue. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then as we start to work into the green, this is where we now need to change colours. Now I have put together the 3 smaller amounts of cream that are going to do the snow-capped mountains. So the largest one I've popped in the middle because that's the biggest snow cap. So pull that one through to join in, make sure any of your threads stay at the back, and then we are working 5 trebles. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th one. We're just going to pause there because, as before, we do need to change yarns. So we're back onto yarn H and working our first treble into there, and I have just caught inside the other blue yarn. It's up to you just how you do that. I quite like to catch them in if I can. Now then, let's see, I think I've got 11 blue to work here, but the nice thing about this is, of course, that you don't have to think too hard. It's just as you start to work into the green, you know that that's your last stitch in this colour. So there we go, I'm back at the green now. So pull the first 2 through, make sure that that stays at this side. Don't pick up the green, but find the bigger swirl of the cream that you wound off. Pull that through, and then we're going to start work in the green with this cream. So that's 1. Do remember that you can pull these things a bit tighter at the end, and when we sew all the ends in, things neaten up so much. 3, 5, 6, and this is number 7. Oops, just move that green out of the way. And as I'm going to be increasing the V on that one, then I'm going to pull this cream down here out of the way, pull the blue through and crochet around that thread as I do this. So 1, 2, oh, I've done a bit too good a job of wrapping that up. Didn't want to flow. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and on to number 11. Of course, we pause there again. Get the final little twirl of cream. Oops, that's both of them now. Pull that through. And begin to work the 5 stitches in cream on top of the last mountain top. That's 4, this is 5, and here we go with the blue yarn, and then working the first, oh, just a second, nearly made a disaster there. The cream yarn of course needs to come to the back, we don't want that at the front of the work, so I shall just do that again, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and not forgetting that 6th stitch, which I'm going to try and work into that chain there. Okay, let's turn this around so you can see how it should look at the front. So just take a moment to double check that you haven't left any threads showing through at the front that shouldn't be there. So you can now see how the snow-capped mountains are starting to come into it. So again, you're working the same theme going up. The blue will get bigger and bigger and the cream will get smaller and smaller as we work up. So we will join you again for the next round, but some of you may be able to skip the next 2 or 3. Okay, see you in a mo. Okay, so here we are with row 16. As before, start with a chain of 3, and then you are working 6 blue trebles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, starts working into the white, leave the blue yarn, doesn't want to leave me alone, at the back, and pull in with the white or the cream. Then we're working 3 white trebles, and as we get to the end of the 3rd one, you then find the next blue working yarn and pull that through, and then we're going to work, how many are we going to work? I think it's 13 this time, but again we'll know as we get to the end, because you're going to work one past. So you're going to work into that one, then work 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cream ones, change into your blue yarn, and then work another 13 stitches across there, another 3 cream, and then pick up and work to end in the blue. So I'm going to work across those, and then we'll come back and show you the next bit so you can see how it's building. So we'll join you back again in just a moment with the rest of this row. So here's how we look with the snow-capped mountains. Nearly finished these two here. So that's row 16 done. Row 17's worked in exactly the same way as before, just decreasing the number of white stitches that you've got there in the middle. So we'll come back in a moment with that, and then we'll be nearly at the end of this one, which is, you know, amazing really. But I hope you're enjoying it. We'll see you in a moment. Okay, so here we are back with row 17. So we're going to start as before with the chain of 3, and then work 1 treble into each of the next 7 stitches. And the 7th stitch should, we're getting a bit tangled, that's not good, it's not helpful at all, is it? So here we go. So the 7th one goes into the first of the cream stitches. Need to make sure this yarn comes to this side and that we're picking up the cream. Now this is going to be the last cream stitch. Just pull that a bit tighter. That's the last of the cream stitches for that particular part of the mountain. For the snow cap, keep the cream to this side and pull through, and then continue, not forgetting that you have to work into number 3 of the cream stitches on the row below. It gets, because there's so few stitches there at the moment, it can be a little bit fiddly to work. So same thing as before, we're going to work across. On this one we'll still have 3 stitches to work. On the final one it'll be 1 stitch there, and then you'll have completed the 2 end ones. But I'll complete that row. You know the theory by now. So we've got 1 cream stitch there, 3 here and 1 here, and the rest will be in the blue, and shortly we'll be able to just use one lot of the blue, but I'll show you again in a minute. Okay. Okay, so that's where we are at the end of row 17. For row 18 we'll be only actually using 2 lots of yarn, but I'll show you that in a minute so you can see the sort of thing that you're aiming for on this. So yeah, hope you like it so far. See you in the next row. Okay, row 18 is super simple. So it's a chain of 3, and then you're doing in the blue for me, you are working all the way across, only changing yarns once. So these are standard UK trebles, and you'll go all the way across the top to here. You will literally just change yarn once for the cream stitch in the middle, and then after that we are back on the blue completely. So for this particular row now I'm not using any of the extra balls of yarn except for the cream one here in the middle. So I'll just come back at the end and show you what we've got, just so that you've got that continuity going. but basically work trebles all the way across, and you'll have done perfectly. Don't forget to work a treble in the very last chain of 3 that's on the row below, because that's really the only place I could see that you might get tripped up. Just check you've got the right number of stitches at the end of the row. Okay, I'll see you again in a moment. Okay, so I have just spent a couple of minutes sewing all the ends in. So this is how we look at the end of row 18, which of course you've finished at the back, so I've got rid of all my ends there. So row 19 and 20, or rows 19 and 20, are super simple. So we've got a chain of 3, and then you miss that first stitch because your chain of 3 is the first stitch, and you basically now work a UK treble all the way across the row. You will include in the chain of 3, you would be able to count 51 stitches going across here, and of course we're back to using just the one ball of blue. So that's rows 19 and 20. So when you get to the end of row 19, you do a chain of 3, turn your work around, and again work a treble all the way to the end, and we'll pick up at the end there just to show you what we've got and what we're going to do next. Okay. Okay, so here we are at the end of row 20, and on this particular one you're going to fasten off, because once you've sewn your ends in, etc., then we're going to go back to the beginning. We're going to change colours. So fasten off, sew your ends in, and then we'll come back with row 21, which changes and starts from this end. Okay, we'll see you again in a moment. Okay, so for row 21 you have the right side facing, and you're going to join into the top right hand corner, and that's into the last stitch, or the chain of 3 actually, that it will be there. And we're going to do a chain of 3 again, and you will notice that we've gone back to yarn A, which for me is the cream yarn. We're then going to work a treble into every stitch across. So again, a nice really simple row, just to balance out the top and the bottom, and to get us ready for the next stage. So work your way across, including that one you will have 51 stitches, again going all the way to the end. So we'll join you again in a moment at the end of this row. Don't fasten off when you get to the end of this row, you will just be turning. Okay, we'll see you again at the end of the row. So nice simple row of trebles for this one, and then we are going to turn. So as I said before, make sure you don't fasten off. We're going to turn around in a moment and work row 22. Okay, so row 22 is just slightly different. So we're doing a chain of 2, then you miss that first stitch because your chain of 2 classes as a half treble, and then we're going to work a half treble into every treble of the row below, and so basically every stitch. So at the end of this you will end up with a full row of half trebles, and that's 51 stitches. Again, when you get to the end, don't break your yarn. You will be turning the work and starting to work the border. Okay, see you again at the end of the row. Okay, so we've now finished row 22 and we're about to start the border. Don't fasten off, we will be starting from that point to work the border stitches, so hopefully you're all happy with where you've got. to so far. I'm loving this slightly raised bit at the bottom before the mountains, the snow-capped mountains. So yeah, we'll join you in a moment with the first round of the border. Okay, so we've got to the first corner and we have 17 sets of trebles evenly across the top. I finished in the next to the last stitch. The last stitch is this set of 3 trebles at the very end. Then to work the corner, that's just a chain 2, and then we're going to work more sets of 3 trebles at each point down the side. So I have worked right into that corner there. Then we're going to space them as evenly as we can down this side, and you're looking for 12 groups of 3 trebles. So I'm going to miss that one, work into this one. So what I'll do, I'll work down the side and then I will show you exactly where I've worked into all the way down, because it does get a little bit more fiddly as you go further down the side, and we just want them as evenly spaced as possible. So sets of 3 trebles starting right up there in that top corner. We'll come back in a moment and show you exactly where we've worked. Okay, so we're back with the corner. We've now got 12 sets. 12. Is it 12? It can't be 12. Work to the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, sorry. 16 sets, don't know why I was thinking 12. Then we get to the corner and we work 2 chain. Then we rotate the work and we start working the groups of 3 trebles all the way down. Now it's fairly easy down these sides because of how the rows are formed. So I've started right in the top row. Next to that one, I'm going to miss this row and then work into the blue one, because we're aiming for 12 sets of 3 trebles. So definitely to start with, that is quite easy because the rows space them out in such a way. So what I'll do, I'll keep working down the side and then I'll come back and show you exactly where I've worked. And you may find that helpful. I know some people struggle to get them evenly spaced down the sides. So I'll come back in a moment and show you the 12 sets that we're doing down the side. Okay, see you in a moment. Okay, so I'll just lay that out for you, then you can zoom in if you need to. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 sets evenly spaced along the side. So if you need to have a close look, obviously you should be able to with this one. Then we do the chain of 2 and we're turning the work again, and you miss the first stitch there and start to work into the second stitch. So the first stitch is actually that chain of 3. So 1, 2, 3, miss 2 loops there, miss those 2, work into third one. They will stretch a little bit as you're working into them, but then they kind of even themselves out and settle back down when you've finished. So 1, 2, 3. Take your time a little bit to check that you're working into the right stitch. It's quite easy to go wrong, I think, on this bottom row and either miscount your spaces and end up with too many or too little. So that's what we're aiming for next, and I'll come back and show you the finished row in just a moment. Okay, so here we are with a nice row of 17 sets worked evenly down the side, you should finish in the next to the last stitch. So this is the last one. As before with the corner, we're just going to do a 2 chain, and then you start working into the very first white row with your 3 sets of 3 trebles. Miss a row, work into the next one, and keep going down the side. Again, you want 12 groups. So I'm just going to pause there, I'll work down the side, and then I will show you exactly where I've worked all 12. If you need that help, you've got it. Okay, see you again in a moment. Okay, so here we are with our 12 groups of trebles down the side. When you get to the final corner, you do a 2 chain and a slip stitch into that top of the chain 3, and you're going to turn now, so the next row will be worked on the wrong side, but don't fasten the yarn off. Okay, so you've got these lovely trebles going all the way around the border. Okay, see you again in a moment. Okay, for round 2 we're going to turn the work so that the back of the work is facing, and you work a chain of 3, and that counts as a treble. This is the first treble, but it's actually the last treble of this side, because we're going to go straight into working a corner, which is 2 trebles, 1 chain and another 2 trebles, and then you are working really simply a treble into every stitch down the side, and we're going to do this all the way around. So along the sides you work a treble into every stitch, and at each corner 2 chain space you work 2 trebles, 1 chain and 2 trebles into that corner. When you've finished, you should have 55 stitches along the top and the bottom, and 40 stitches down each side. That includes what you've worked into the corner spaces. So I'm going to keep going round there, and then we'll come back and show you the finished item. So we'll see you again in a couple of minutes. Okay, bye for now. Okay, so here we are at the end of this square, or oblong if you want to be quite specific about it. So I've finished off there, and you can just cut your yarn and pull that through, and then fasten off all your ends. So you've got the nice front forward piece here for your mountain, the bottom of your mountains. You've all the lovely edges. I really do like these edges, it just gives it another dimension. So I hope you've enjoyed doing that one. We'll be back in a little while with view 7, and yeah, good. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. We'll see you in view 7.